Hello and welcome to ClapperCast. I'm your host as always, Carson Timar, and today myself and the King of Burbank, Michael Fairbanks, are heading to the theater to review Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. This is a film that has been getting tons of hype, there is a ton of excitement for it, and for most people it seems like that excitement is being justified. People have been throwing around that this is not just one of the best movies of the year, but one of the best movies of the decade. It is a lot of people's opinion the most relevant and current film to come out when it comes to talking about the current political landscape and the current status of the human condition. And myself and Michael are definitely not quite on that wavelength. We definitely get into debate here about certain things that rubbed us the wrong way and certain issues we have in the screenplay. While we do definitely like the film overall, this is definitely going to be a little bit more challenging than some of the other reviews out there, but that is okay. That just makes for a fun episode with unique opinions and some interesting angles. I hope that whether you're the biggest fan of One Battle After Another or you were disappointed by what you saw, you can still enjoy the episode. You can listen to us with an open mind and engage in a respectful conversation. With that said, the one last thing I'll put out there is just an FYI that this is a spoiler-filled discussion, so please see the movie before you watch this episode or you listen to this review. But without further ado, let's get to our review of One Battle After Another. Okay, Michael, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today to talk about another new release, One Battle After Another, Paul Thomas Anderson's new film. I didn't have a lot of thoughts going into this, but I know you were so excited. You were out of the friend group, the stan for this movie going into it. You were counting down the days. You had your little card, I'm sure, printed out to see it in all these different versions. You kept being like, oh, I got another ticket to see it in this new format. You were into this movie going into it, and you've actually seen it twice now. You've rewatched the film, I believe, I understand correctly. So I think I could say a lot, but I'll turn it over to you first. What were your thoughts on Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another? I know we've had some disappointing things you were excited for this year, but did this live up to the hype? Is this the movie of the decade?
No. I was very excited for this movie, as you mentioned. I'm not necessarily the number one PTA fan, but I would say that I like or love the majority of his movies. I think Punch Drunk Love and Phantom Thread are probably my two favorites. So going into this, it just genre-wise really appealed to me. I'm just such a big fan of action movies, and this just felt very in the wheelhouse of something that I would love. And I always adore PTA's craft, and sometimes the premise just doesn't really hit for me, but this time, with this whole idea of these revolutionaries past and present, the washed up kind of dude style Leonardo DiCaprio performance, just sort of the whole thing, it just felt very made for me, and I was very excited to see it. And I do like it. I think that it is extremely entertaining, extremely compelling. And both times I've watched it, I haven't been bored. It's a really rockling experience that just brings you along. And it's so funny often, especially because of Leonardo DiCaprio's performance, which I think really kind of dresses down his usual screen persona into something that's a bit more pathetic and ornery and less buttoned up than he usually does, which I think is great. I do unfortunately think that the story is built on a really bad foundation in the first act. And it's kind of hard to get into exactly what my issues are without really delving into spoilers, which I'm sure that we will. But in the opening sequences, it feels like one long montage for the first 30-35 minutes where they're documenting the French 75 and Leo's relationship with Teyana Taylor's perfidia that goes awry, and their early encounters with Colonel Lockjaw, Sean Penn. And it's all kind of flowing by really fast, and there's not a lot of time to slow down and get inside of these characters' heads, which makes for a really exciting opening until Perfidia makes a couple of really baffling decisions that I don't think are well set up, developed, or even logical at all. And I think that because of the entire outcome of the story stems off of these decisions that I think are not only nonsensical, but I think set some really bad messages about characters that are really dealing with some very important issues. And it left such a bad taste in my mouth that even though I really actually enjoy the vast majority of the movie, because I mean, the post time jump part is very much the majority, I would say. It's probably the back like hour and a half, hour, 40 minutes. And from there, I pretty much think it's really fun. I don't really think it's like incredible, but certainly enjoyable, mostly because of Leonardo DiCaprio. I really wish that it elevated the three black women in supporting roles as much as it elevates Leonardo DiCaprio and Benicio del Toro. And I also just think that Sean Penn's performance, that I'm sure we'll get into, is pretty laughable. And I'm kind of baffled by the Oscar buzz for him because it's just such a shallow cartoon, one note villain that feels like he's just from a different movie. So, yeah.
Be kind to your future best supporting actor winner. Just watch yourself.
Ugh.
Okay. When we all sit together and we have to watch that acceptance speech, I just want you to be kind, because that will happen in a few months. I really have two of my own battles I'm battling this episode. Number one is I'm going to be positive on this movie. I am overall more thumbs up than thumbs down, and I'm gonna do my best to remind myself of that throughout this episode, because I feel like I very quickly could spiral on this film and go into the negative direction. So just everyone at home, don't worry, I'm not gonna shit on this film the entire time, but if you see me like having to just remind myself of positives or just take a mental health moment, just know I need to be positive on this film, because I cannot give this rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. So I have to give it positive. I have to frame my reference.
Ocean waves.
Exactly,
Ocean waves.
Exactly. The other issue is that, I guess, getting into my opinion, I really don't have much to say about this film. It's been a while since I saw it, number one. But number two, I, more so than I think any other film I've seen or covered on the podcast, let's be specific, I guess, I don't understand the passion for this movie in genuinely any way. I do not think there's a single piece of this film, and not to say they're all bad, but I don't think there's any piece of this film that evokes passion for me in any regard. So I'm a little baffled. And I'm not going to, I guess, we don't necessarily need to get into that conversation, because then I will spiral on how terrible critics are. But I'm a little baffled that this film has been projected as being a revolutionary, life-changing movie of the decade. Because this film is very, very basic in plot. I think that is something that needs to be clear, because everyone is saying this is his politically charged statement. It's the movie of the time. I think the thing that was most shocking to me, and don't worry, we'll get into spoilers here pretty quickly, I want to say. But before we get there, well, actually, you know what? Let's just say spoiler warning. Let's just make this a spoiler review, because I don't want to bounce around things and dance around things. I was really surprised that this movie just has like peace and love, nothing to it to say, especially about politics. It uses political statements as the setting, as set dressing, as a catalyst for this plot. But when you break it down, this entire plot for a nearly 3-hour feature, and that's a big point I'm going to bring up, is how this is, whatever this achieves, it does in 3 fucking hours. This entire movie is basically this father and daughter get split up. They have to meet at a rendezvous point. That's the movie. You watch that and you think, oh, okay, we're going to move on to something else. They're going to find each other. This has to be more. There's literally 2 hours at least of this film that is just that, which is so fucking boring of a concept and of a plot. And I don't know, it's interesting to me how this movie, with its cast, which I would love for people to research some of this cast and see their politics and see their care for certain topics happening in the world. Yeah, they want to turn around and make this movie that projects themselves as being liberal saviors while you're building hotels in a fucking genocide. But whatever, that's not my, who am I to say? Who am I to speak about that? I find it very interesting that people at home are just watching Leonardo DiCaprio like walk next to migrants or walk next to undocumented people, and they're like, this is reflecting on something. there's just nothing here on that deeper level, which I find really surprising considering the reflection that people seem to be having in a way that, like, I don't think it's necessarily problematic. But comparing this to Eddington, which Eddington is a film I despise, I think that's 1-star garbage. At least I will say Eddington was using these themes in a way that was trying to project a message. I think that message is bad and messy, but at least it was like actually taking the chance to do something. I'm a little surprised that this film just seemingly, again, uses it as a catalyst for a very, very basic plot. And I guess I didn't expect that. Did you see anything deeper that I am missing here beyond the two parts? Is there's a generalized theme of collective action, which I really love. I think that is something we need to focus on as community, and how do we uplift each other when the government doesn't uplift us? I think that's wonderful. And there's a very, very generic message about, like, the next generation. I'm sure they're going to do good. They're protesting. They're cool people. Outside of that, I see nothing. But I'm curious, do you see anything in this film on its mind deeper than that?
I think there is a take on Leonardo DiCaprio's character being sort of a self-insert for Paul Thomas Anderson. That's how I interpreted it. He's kind of this like hapless, very enthusiastic guy who really wants to be helpful, wants to be someone who's really pushing these revolutionary concepts forward, but is ultimately, by his sheer nature, an outsider and an interloper. And I think that when this movie is at its best, which to me is the middle segment where Lockjaw takes over Bat Can Cross, and it's a Leonardo DiCaprio and Benicio del Toro like buddy movie, basically, where Del Toro is escorting him through his network of people that he's uh, helping from being deported, and it's kind of this like crazy hide and chase sequence interspersed with Leo trying to get the information about the rendezvous point. It all really works. And I think, a lot of that is Leo, and a lot of that, surprisingly, is Benicio del Toro. I know on the last episode of ClapperCast, I spent half the episode about the Phoenician scheme. I spent half the episode yelling about him and ranting and raving about what a bad actor he is. But honestly, he kind of turned around and blew me away in this with the kind of serene, cool sense of calm he brought to this sensei guy. And I remember seeing this in the trailer and being like, why are they fucking calling this guy a sensei? That's so weird. And then like it actually kind of like he just runs like a strip mall karate dojo, and like he actually is like a mentor to the Willa and even Bob a little bit. And like I actually ended up really loving how that character figured in. So I think that that's the message that he's trying to push, or at least like the analog for this story is like, even though, you know, white people get caught in the middle of these situations, they can only be so useful. But what I think undermines that ultimately is how just recklessly he treats Perfidia in the beginning of the movie. And I think that Teyana Taylor is fabulous. I think that she carries the character with as much dignity as possible. And by the way, if you guys haven't seen her in 1001, much better role than she's given here. And it's a great little movie. But I think that when in the early goings, she decides for seemingly no reason to have sex with Sean Penn's like fascist guy just because he caught her in the act, let her go, and then she leaves with Bob and is like internally just decides like, I'm gonna go and do this just for some power trip, mothers his child, but thinks it's maybe Pat slash Bob's daughter, and then just kind of loses her shit, accidentally, or not accidentally, she in a fit kind of kills this bank security guard, gets caught, disappeared. I just think it's such a strange image to put out there of this like strong, passionate black woman ultimately being the thing to like undo this revolutionary movement and kind of being like the squeaky wheel. I just think it's so weird and wrong. And when I was watching it for the second time, I was really like, okay, maybe I'm gonna see like, because the way people go on and on about like, oh, this character, everything's in the subtlety of it, everything's in the way she looks at the way she looks and her kind of subtle acting and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, no, it's just this is a horrible character. And I think like that character drives such a crater into any of the um, messaging and commentary that could have been there, that all it can really spin out of after that is just being kind of a fun action comedy.
Which we'll get to that identity because I don't think it fails at that identity at all. But going to this character specifically, I think the biggest issue is that she's never given a voice. What this character demanded was a third act, or even in the first act, but I think especially probably building to the third act or the final moments, is giving her a voice to explain herself and build empathy and build understanding. That is never done. And I think it is a really problematic, and granted, two white men, I want to be very clear about that, talking about this. So I don't think we're necessarily the best people in the world to discuss this. But I do think throughout the film, even past this character, it is very odd to me that every time something goes wrong, it's like a minority at the root of it. Her daughter, in one of the worst writing moments, and I will get to the writing because I think that's my biggest issue here. I think so much of the writing is like incompetent. But this daughter who knows that she's in a life or death situation to where she's willing to go with this random woman and be driven out of town is also going to smuggle a phone. And then that's the thing that causes everything to fall apart. They get taken to this woman of color nun place, which is like such great iconography. It feels like it's out of John Wick for me. But then immediately, and they're like shown to be badasses who are like training. They have no fight against the army that comes. They just immediately fail to protect her. It's, you know, even with the phone, it was only discovered because out of everyone in this group, the they, them, non-binary person is the one who can't hold their own and reveals it to the police. It is so frustrating to me that every single moment that something goes wrong, it has to be either a person of color often or a minority at the root of it. And it just acts like that's okay. And I think especially with the character you mentioned at the beginning, there has been a very long and well documented look at the sexualization of Black women and looking at sexuality within Black women, and to just have it without any follow through or empathy or understanding or circling back to it, to have it be, well, this Black woman just couldn't control it, she just needed to have sex in this moment, is so like gross to me that it really is frustrating to see, especially all the white critics who are out here just saying it's the best movie ever made, just offer no critical thought on that, or no, like, let's actually dissect what the movie is saying. Because I don't think this movie is necessarily trying, obviously, to be racist. It's a movie that the antagonists are racist. It's like basically the KKK. Though also kind of weird that like Sean Penn and the KKK often are portrayed as comedic characters. Granted, I think it works. I think it's very funny in some of their scenes. But almost Sean Penn gets like, not a redemption arc, definitely not redemption arc, but by the end you almost like feel for him in a way, like how it's projected as he's getting killed. I just don't think this movie, I agree with you that I don't think it's necessarily like writingly problematic, but I think that's something with PTA, and I think Licorice Pizza is like a prime example of it, where like when you play with certain themes or you're having certain discussions, you do kind of have to be careful with what you say, because you are going to intentionally or not be projecting a message and projecting a view on things. And I think he is very quick to just be like, yeah, whatever, but we're just going to do what's kind of fun for me. And it's like, well, that doesn't necessarily work here. I think here it does play as like racist / problematic at times. In Licorice Pizza, you can't really just have, oh, it's really fun and cute actually they get back together, because it is pedophilia. Like, you have to be more careful, I think, with the writing than he is. And I think he's a great director in so many ways. I think with the iconography, he's always spectacular. The car chases here are great, especially the one towards the end where they're going up and down on the road. It's very funny. If you drive to Arizona, which I've made that drive so many times out of Southern California, you get that exact piece of road. And like that all plays extremely well. And I think as an action comedy, as you say, when it's him and Del Toro like walking around or running around on these rooftops and he's falling off the roof, that's all very, very funny. That works for me in a way that I am having fun with this. I think my issue then is that movie, though, does not hold my attention for 3 hours. That movie does not justify the experience that this film is putting me through. And if it was 90 minutes or 100 minutes, 110 minutes, I could be like, oh, this is just fun. Leo and Del Toro going, having fun, jumping around roofs, walking through all these secret passageways. I could get behind. It just is drawn out to the point where even that begins to lose some of its charm. And I also think PTA, and this is something just about him, is he's very known for these cameos. He's very known for like these people who come in for these small roles, they come in and then they disappear. And I think that works well throughout his filmography. This really was frustrating to me. I think specifically Del Toro is such a strong character, such a strong performance. The fact that he disappears when he does and you just don't get any resolution, with also some other characters that bothered me, specifically the woman who saved the daughter. I don't know, that really also bothered me to where I was like, oh, I'm just feeling this is unsatisfying. And for a 3-hour film, I shouldn't feel this unsatisfied by it.
Yeah. And I think, like, to address a couple of your points, I think that it's not so much that Lockjaw gets a kind of about face. I just think he gets so much time. He's such a one note shallow character, and there are so many scenes that are just him doing the same thing. He's posturing and he's doing all his weird, like, he's licking the comb and he's yelling at people and he's just kind of this like slime, and he never really evolves or changes even when he learns that Chase Infinity is his daughter in any kind of meaningful way. He's just kind of a villain, and like that's fine. And I don't necessarily think that like a white supremacist guy should be that deep or rich of a character, but like it would be nice for a character that we're spending so much time with at the expense of, like you said, all of the characters of color. I wanted way more of Chase Infinity. I think that what we see, she's great, but I think she doesn't really get very much until the third act, and even then it's mostly kind of reactive action sequence acting, which is still hard and still like very, it takes a lot of talent to do that. But I thought that she brought a lot to the character in the early goings for her like 2 or 3 scenes where she got to talk, and I just would have really liked a lot more of that and a lot less of the Christmas adventurers and these like long drawn out boardroom conversations that ultimately boiled down to a bunch of like punchline ha 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 moments of these guys like saying slurs and being racist, and just like, we got to go get them. Like that's boiling down. That's
You
like
didn't
the
like
point
when
of,
Leo just authentically dropped the R slur? Like, just
oh,
authentically
well,
in the
I wasn't
plot,
even
just...
talking, but
No,
yeah,
I know
no,
you weren't,
well,
but...
yeah, no, I mean, there's that. There's a lot of little moments where I feel like they're just kind of trying to be edgy to get like a laugh out of the audience and not like to really drive home a point, which is something I know you and I completely disagree on Eddington, but that's something for me that I think Eddington did really well. Um, and then as far as the action, I actually have a hot take. I think that the first car chase after the bank robbery is better than the third act one, because like I get that it's suspenseful, but it's 3 cars that are all a mile down the road from one another, slowly going up and down this like long road. And once you get past the fact of like, oh, the POV shot of the road going up and down looks cool, like not much happens in that chase. And people are acting like this is one of the greatest car chases ever put to film. And it's just 3 cars driving in a straight line, not close to one another, until Chase Infinity like dead stops the guy. And it's just, I just don't think it's like that spectacular of an action sequence, especially when you have that first one that almost has like kind of a Heat Michael Mann energy to it that I really, really love. Yeah, I really just think it's at its best when it's DiCaprio doing the kind of like aggro humor and the physical comedy. And there's just a part of me where that white guy being the best, most developed character in the movie just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I would agree with you about the car chase. I was shocked. I mean, I'm shocked that everyone is loving the film in any degree, how much they are, but especially because people were walking away with like, this is the best action movie ever. And you even texted me, you were like, is the action really that good? I'm like, it's not really an action movie how I think people are projecting it to be. Like, that first car chase is really fantastic. I fully agree with you, but like, that's 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes at the end. Like, it's just, there's chase scenes. Like, Leonardo running around the roofs, I guess, is technically action, but I certainly would not categorize this as like an action movie, and people are walking away acting like it is. So I don't get that. I do want to touch on Chase Infinity because I think, again, the biggest issue here is the writing, and there's a lot of loose ends that don't make sense. I don't think it necessarily knows how it actually feels about new liberals, because it both like makes fun of them and yells about how stupid they are while also being like, but that's hope for the future. I don't really get at the end why they can just have smartphones, as if lockjaw was the only issue, and now that like this case is reopened and has a ton of resources put behind it, they just no longer have to be worried about it. But it's funny because Leo gets to take a selfie, everyone. Haha, hee hee. How funny is that? I think Chase Infinity is a very talented actor, but I think her performance is terrible in this because I think her direction is awful. I don't think she's given any competent direction here, because she both has to be stoic and completely stone cold, like stone faced, serious, but at the same time is projected to be like a normal teen rebelling against her father in ways, who's sick of all this tight, like the character is a contradiction. It's horrible writing for a character, and I think her performance as a result, like, you're sitting there and it just doesn't match what I feel like her character should be going through as a teenager in this moment with how she's been projected. I found that to be really, really frustrating. And I think it's sad because I think, again, she is super talented, no hate at all towards her. I just think as far as the writing goes, she was probably the biggest victim, I would say, of it. I really could not get with her performance. But I think the performances, again, like, I agree, Sean Penn didn't do a lot for me. I do think this is like, is it as bad? I'll say it's as bad. It's almost as bad as like Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere, as far as like if it wins the award. That is brutal. I would actually say it's worse. I would say Jamie Lee Curtis actually evokes some emotion in there. It's pretty bad, this one. Leo's fun. I like Leo. Del Toro's fun, like we mentioned. Past that, yeah, I don't know. Tiana Taylor is great in the 5 scenes she has. Hey, the Haim girl, she walked around for that 1 minute. That was good. I would say, I don't know if the performances are the strongest point here. I don't know. I guess I think, not that awards matter and not that we need to get fully into it, but like, I think this is genuinely like quite an embarrassing film to like sweep the Oscars or be a real big Oscar play. Not to compare cinema, but I think the fact that Sinners came out this year, and I think this will hopefully speak to you. I know you love Sinners even more than I do. I thought it was genuinely embarrassing that people were comparing this, and even some people putting this over Sinners, in conversations of quality, in conversations of meaning, and especially in the award categories, because Sinners has so much against it. It needs that momentum. It needs that push. And I still think it's going to get Best Picture nom. Like, I don't think it's dead. I think this really hurts Sinners, and I think that is so fucking stupid, to be honest. I really, like, that boils my blood.
Yeah, I mean, it's the shiny new toy, like, recency bias thing. And I think especially like people in the film world have a real problem. And I mean, I'm not exactly one to be complaining about people not being able to remember things, God knows. But like, I do think that like people have the memory of a goldfish when like a really new, big, beloved movie comes out, and suddenly everything else before it has to be like, passe old hat. But yeah, no, there's just no universe where this deserves to be given recognition over Sinners in any category. Like, it's just not as good. And I think, to say it directly, PTA is a white director, and he has this like very kind of like strong, effusive white boy film bro following that's just gonna be as abrasive and aggravating as possible in his defense, when honestly he seems pretty mellow. Like, I don't think he puts that energy out there really. Like, any interview quote I've seen, he seems very almost like chill, and he talks about how he likes just like regular movies. And I'm sure that like if you asked him about Sinners, I think he would probably say it was an incredible movie. But people are gonna, it's gonna turn into like a one or the other thing. It's not gonna turn into like we can like both, and it's gonna turn into a Stan War situation, and there is just, to me, there's no comparison. They are so just Sinners is just in another league, and I would be so saddened if, like, it would almost, like, not as bad, but to me it would be kind of like when Brokeback Mountain lost to Crash. Like, it would almost be that level of, like,
I see it.
at least for me. And it's a bummer. And I also just think we're gonna get, people keep being like, there's no good movies coming out. I think we are gonna get some movies this fall that are better than this, that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, we're gonna get movies that are better than this. Obviously, I'm sure this week we're gonna get movies that are better than this.
Yeah. The Taylor Swift movie.
Well, didn't say which ones. We don't need to get into what I'm seeing 3 times this week. But I think the one area where maybe it's better than Sinners is the score. But I'm just a big Johnny Greenwood fan. But, like, I don't even think that's true. Sinners,
no way.
Score.
No, I do think the score in this is fabulous.
Yeah.
But the score in, like, Sinners is so much about the music.
Yeah.
And, like, that the Ludwig score is, like, groundbreaking. This score is good. Like, if it won, I wouldn't necessarily be like, but, like, it's I would be a little aggravated.
I will say loved, there was a Twitter post going around today that was like, what is Warner Brothers going to do? They have the Sinners, they have One Battle After Another, and they have Weapons. What are they going to do out of these 3? And I think we differ with some of Weapons' thoughts as far as the Academy Awards, but, like, I found it so funny that you think they might push Weapons over One Battle After Another or Sinners. Very funny to me. It was very like that meme with the 3 dragon heads, and it was like the good one, and then the doofus one. It was giving that, and it was very funny to me. But
I will say that I think Amy Madigan does have a chance for Weapons. That's really the only thing they have going for them for awards wise, even though I think Weapons is a way better movie than One Battle After Another. Like, I'm not really, having the conversation of, like, if any one of them is the doofus dragon out of the 3, to me, it's One Battle After Another.
I meant, like, politically in award season. I didn't mean, like,
right.
I agree with you.
like no, but I'm just saying, I think the only thing they're really going to be pushing Weapons for is Amy Madigan. And I mean, I think Gladys has unfortunately, more dimension than the supporting actresses of One Battle After Another. I mean, God knows there's some great supporting women performances in Sinners that should be getting that recognition. But, like, I don't know. I think that someone from both One Battle After Another and Sinners will wind up in that supporting actress category. But if Warner Brothers does have 3 out of the 5, that'll be pretty wild for sure.
I also think it's a world where this gets double nominated. I don't know. There's a lot of things. But as far as quality, I'll be honest. I think, like, in this single statement, I don't need judgment from you or anyone at home. I think, like, Wolfman is better than this. Like, I really did not care for this. But,
whoa. I like that you're like, I'm gonna stay in the fresh tomato, and then you're like, I think
I liked Wolf. I liked Wolf.
Dog shit movies of the year is better.
Okay.
Did you like Wolfman?
I mean, like, to the level I like this. It had moments.
Damn, that's crazy.
It had moments.
Wolfman.
Wow. I need to rewatch it. I will say, so let me end this with, like, I need to remind myself, it's a fun movie. It is fun in that second
Ocean
half.
Waves.
Leonardo DiCaprio is fun. Del Toro is great. It has a great score. The action is fine. It's watchable. It's not like the worst movie ever made. It is very watchable. It's good. Okay. Anything else you want to say about One Battle After Another?
I like it. I think I'm grateful that.
Did you feel the length at all around 2? Did you feel? Was there any?
I don't think it feels long. I don't think it feels that long. I think it moves pretty briskly, and it's also not 3 hours. Like, that extra 20 minutes, like, really, I think does, make a difference. And I think it does move really briskly. And even though, like, it's much more a movie that I have problems with than
Sure.
think is like bad.
I agree.
Whereas like both times I watched it, I was sitting there very entertained, very satisfied and enjoying it. I really feel no need to ever watch it again. But like if I was in a situation where like my parents were like, we want to see this, will you watch it with us? Like, of course I would. I
Yeah.
could see myself watching it on streaming, throwing it on someday just for giggles. I just think it's not of the caliber people think it is. And I also think that if anyone but PTA had directed the exact same movie, people would be having a very different conversation about it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
that's
also think that anybody who's talking about best movie of the decade before the Odyssey comes out, you're going to be in for a rude
true.
awakening come
Between
next year.
that, if you're saying before that or after The Hunt, either one, you're crazy.
So true. We're gonna have to
Um,
come back for the spirited after the hunt discussion. I'm sure we'll.
but when it sweeps the Oscars,
Sure,
we'll do a
yeah.
special for sure.
That's your other
Hold that one.
supporting actress, Io Debris.
Hell yeah.
I wish.
Me too. Me too, to be honest. Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think this movie's bad. I think it's watchable. I wish it was more, but I think it's fine. I think it's very PTA. I think all my issues with PTA, like, and I typically like his films more than this, but I think all of his issues shine in this where I'm like, yeah, that adds up. It's innocent. I'm not mad at this film at all, but it definitely is not the masterpiece I think people are claiming it to be. But I'm happy that everyone's enjoying a movie, of course. I wish people enjoy every movie. With that, I think that's going to do it for our episode of One Battle After Another. You can find this currently playing in theaters. I will say, this is going to be leaving the premium formats pretty quickly, I believe. I know Taylor's taking a bunch of them for next weekend. I think this is probably going to go back after that, but like, things move. Avatar is being re-released. Like, I would recommend, if you're going to see this movie, find the biggest screen near you, an IMAX, Dolby Cinema, whatever it is, and I would say go see it this week. Like, I would say if you're going to see it, it's worth seeing on the big screen. With that, that's going to do it for our review portion of this. Michael, let's go to our Raptor reviews. Anything we've seen recently that we haven't talked about? I know you've been seeing a lot at a certain film festival. I will just say quickly, what have I seen that's worthwhile to bring up? I don't know. I guess I watched Warfare. It wasn't very good, but I like the sound design. It was just like, I don't know. I don't like war movies at this point. Ocean with David Attenborough was like a phenomenal nature documentary. If anyone likes those, check that out. And then I'll end, I guess, with I Know What You Did Last Summer, the new version. I finally caught it on streaming. It was a fucking atrocious. It was horrible. So sad. Michael, what have you seen recently?
I saw him, one of the worst of the decade, and I will never forget this one extremely unhinged TikTok theory I heard where someone was like, the NFL staged a conspiracy of negative reviews because it makes them look bad. I'm like now understanding what like people who dislike M. Night Shyamalan feel when like me and all the people who love him are like hyping up his latest movie and everyone's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because him like has its very vocal fans, which is just crazy to me. I liked A Big Bold Beautiful Journey maybe more than most people. I thought it was really cute, a little odd, not didn't really kind of stick the landing, but I think it was very ambitious and certainly worth my time. But the movie at Beyond Fest that has really blown my mind that I cannot shake is If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, starring Rose Byrne. It's about a woman who has a young daughter who has an undefined terminal illness where she has to feed through a feeding tube. The daughter is never shown on screen. So it's like this constant feed of like agonized complaining and kind of need that sort of piles onto a bunch of other like terrible circumstances in Rose Byrne's life. It's produced by Josh Safdie, and it definitely has sort of the DNA of a Safdie brothers movie, but out of context of a crime story and in context of kind of the struggles of being a mother, being a woman, being trapped in all these different kind of pockets of domestic labor and different demands from the people in your life and the people in society. It's directed by Mary Bronstein, who I hadn't seen any work from before, but was really absolutely blown away. I think besides Sinners, it's my favorite movie of the year. So when it comes out on October 10th, please go see that. That's a movie that deserves recognition. And I'm sure we'll get none because it's not even the only like psycho postpartum depression movie coming out with Die My Love with Jennifer Lawrence also coming out. And I haven't seen that yet. I'm sure that might be great too. But that's the movie I would say see it on the biggest screen possible, not
I'm
one battle after
excited.
another.
I'm seeing it in a couple weeks.
It's
I'm
so
really
good.
excited for it. Yeah, it's crazy. Like award season and like fall releases really are here because I'm looking at my schedule and it's like endless movies I'm seeing, which is terrifying but fun. Um, Also, before we wrap up, I will say a little bit of, I don't know, maybe an announcement. Michael, we're attending AFI Fest. I'm so excited. We're attending the festival this year. We should be having a podcast release talking about our experiences. A stellar lineup, I will say. Like some years, Peace and Love to AFI Fest, some years it's really, really rough. And I was really worried. I was like, oh my God, oh, hopefully it's not bad. But it's really good. So I'm really excited for that. Maybe we'll have some podcasts coming out about certain films we see if anything really inspires us. But I'm really excited. I think this is your first AFI Fest. I've been to a few, so it should be really exciting. And hopefully we get to see your man Bradley Cooper there. So with that, that's going to do it for today's episode. Michael, where can we find your work on the internet?
King of Burbank, TikTok, X, Twitter. I call it Twitter.
Yep, we do too.
Instagram, um, Merry-Go-Round magazine for certain editorials. I'm back at it. Job hunt hasn't panned out as I thought it might. We're back on the road. We're back just kind of trying to find anything. So since there's no stakes anymore, King of Burbank is alive and well. It's
We are
on.
back.
It's the most abusive relationship of my life. On again, off again, but we're on again right now. So that's where you can find me.
When speaking of roads, you don't plug yourself well at all, I'll say. You just wrote like an incredible feature about the long walk and the men or the boys, I guess, from the long walk and how it doesn't necessarily reflect our society now. The link will be in the description below. I thought it was a great read. So I think everyone should check it out. Would be my
Hey,
vote at
thanks.
least.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
I write a decent amount for a merry-go-round, so and I post my editorials whenever I write them there on all my other socials.
yeah, would highly recommend though. You can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd, just Carson Tamar. I don't really post on Blue Sky. You can follow me there on Twitter. It's I'm not going to post to either one to be honest, but outside of the occasional like retweet of a cute dog. So sorry for that. Yeah, and this will be our episode. So thank you so much for listening and watching. Goodbye.